This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Welcome to another episode of Curbcast. My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And every week we get an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm in sequential order, and we review the episode scene by scene. And Stephen, we are in the tail end of season 4. We're up to episode 7, The Surrogate. Probably my favorite episode of the season.
Yeah, no, excellent episode. I think we touched on it last week because we were going to record these episodes back to back, but due to time restrictions, we didn't.
Yep.
But yeah, I would agree. Rewatching it for just before this recording session, yeah, love it. Great episode.
Yeah, it's just so hilarious. My favorite part is when you see the surrogate running from the bridal shower.
Yeah,
She's got a panda in her arms.
Yeah, the rest of the bridal shower chasing her down the street as well.
Fantastic. It's fantastic.
She's moving pretty quickly for a very heavily pregnant woman.
Yeah, well, she probably the actress has a pillow under there, so
yeah,
that's why she can run quite easily.
And she really wants to keep that baby, so yeah, she's got that extra energy, extra spring in her step.
Yeah, it's her baby. Don't let anyone take it away from her.
Exactly. And before we press on with the episode, in case anyone notices that my voice is a bit crackly, a bit croaky, I'm on the tail end of an unfortunate COVID-19 diagnosis. Been at home for just over a week in isolation, but luckily it didn't affect our recording schedule or our ability to put out episodes. But I've still got a bit of a scratchy throat and feeling a tiny bit under the weather still. So if I'm a bit dull or if I forget a few things, it's because of the old foggy COVID brain. So I apologize in advance, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about Frasier today.
Yeah.
What?
I
Not quite, man.
I'd be happy about that. You just talk about Curb, talk about Frasier, and I'm sure at some point we'll meet up.
Yeah, this podcast is now called Frasiercast.
Frasiercast, that's fine.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Nah, you'll be all right, and I'm glad you're you've been under the weather, but you're getting better.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to check us out on social media, you can. We've got a Facebook and Instagram, a Twitter, and a Reddit, and our handle is CurbcastPod. We've also got a email address, curbcastpod@gmail.com, if you want to say hello or get in touch with us. We've got a Facebook group as well called Curb Your Enthusiasms, so check that out. We've got about 3,500 Curb fans all together on Facebook, hanging out and talking all things Larry and all things Curb. And finally, if you want to support us, you can. We've got a Patreon account, patreon.com/mishmash media, which is the name of our podcast network, which we put Curbcast out under. And you can support us for a few bucks a month if you like what we're doing. We don't have any bonus content at the moment, but with 2022 just kicking off and many ideas that have been sort of on the boil for a little while or in our heads for a little while, we will be providing some bonus content and all sorts of cool stuff as the year rolls on.
Indeed. Anyway, let's get into the episode, huh?
Yep.
The Surrogate aired in the US on February 22nd, 2004. In this episode, Larry needs a clean bill of health for the producers, but a little heart trouble means no dice. The doctor gives Larry a device called a heart holter that is used to monitor his heart. Well, he uses the device to get out of some unappealing situations, including a baby shower, accusations of blatant racism, and a car accident which lands him in trouble with his producer's co-star David Schwimmer and his father Irving. So that's that end scene, hilarious.
Yeah,
I love it. The only trivia fact that I have about the episode, Steve, is the actress who plays the toy saleswoman with the biracial doll, a very young Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, spotted that. Melissa McCarthy, obviously a very successful and funny actress in her own right these days. I think my favorite role of hers is probably Bridesmaids. She's hilarious in that.
Oh yeah, she's pretty nuts in that one.
Yeah, she's a kind of a very serious, I don't know, kind of butchy, yeah, like I think she's a cop or something like that, or an ex-cop or something like that, and she's kind of the, she's the least, I guess the implication is that she's the least feminine out of all of the, the women friends, and yeah, she's amazing at that. I love her.
Yeah, she's accomplished a lot. It's good to see her from when she started back in 2004.
Yeah, it's always interesting when that happens. You watch an old movie and then you're like, oh, that's a young, I don't know, Bruce Willis or something.
Yeah, my wife is currently watching ER for the first time. And like I watched like one episode here and there, but she watches it religiously. I sat down and then you look at this actor and you're like, oh, wow. And they play like a patient or something. And it's like, wow, boy, look where he's come from, like the mid-90s. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look what he's doing now.
Totally. Yeah.
This woman, I've seen her in something before.
Yeah,
it's like,
You can't. Sometimes you forget that big stars didn't just drop out of the sky into the A-list. That they did start out just by with little one-off character roles or bit parts or ads or whatever. And it took a while to work up to the big time.
Yeah, definitely. And they worked hard and got where they are. But it's just incredible when you see, especially like Melissa, she's so young and she's only like in one scene, but she doesn't do much really. Like nothing really happens to her
No,
character.
no, no, no. She's kind of just
Yeah.
half confused by Larry's insistence of, all of his takes on biraciality. And is that a word?
Yeah,
Biracial.
biraciality.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's a mulatto.
It sounds like a word, so we'll just pretend it is a word.
It's a mulatto.
I never heard that word before. That was a new one to me.
I never heard that word either.
I had to look it up to look at the history because I was interested, as to why it's not really the accepted description for biracial people anymore. So that was an interesting one.
That was, yeah. Yeah, I Googled that as well. And I'm like, that's what it is. I see.
Yeah.
We're not familiar with that word in Australia.
No. I'd never even heard it like on movies or hadn't, sometimes you just hear old words in your life somewhere. But yeah, obviously a bit of an old word that Larry still hasn't let go of. But, he's pretty receptive to advice in this episode. So that's good.
He is, yes. And especially with black men and white men, and the differences between dating them.
Exactly.
In the first scene, Larry and Cheryl are watching the end of the puffy shirt from Seinfeld in their bed. Their friend Marilyn calls, as she calls after every episode goes to air, as she is a massive fan of the show. Cheryl says Larry is unavailable to talk. Larry says he has to go for a physical exam for the producers tomorrow, as Cheryl asks him to get a present for Betty's baby shower. Larry asks if the surrogate should get something. Larry thinks she should get something as well, even though Cheryl says only Betty should be getting a present. Cheryl is stroking Larry's chest to try and initiate sex, and Larry says he can't do anything at the moment. Give it a couple more days, as the dog Oscar bit his penis a few episodes ago.
Yeah, the first thing that stood out to me in this scene, obviously them watching Seinfeld, was a bit. I mean, Seinfeld exists in Curb World, and a lot of the Seinfeld characters come in and out of the show, and there is a Seinfeld reunion later on as well. But yeah, I mean, that was just what's the word? I don't know. It was an impactful way to open up the episode of like, oh yeah, Larry's watching Seinfeld.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought that was a bit, not odd, but just a bit interesting with Larry is normally when he doesn't understand a social protocol or, something that people do as a custom or whatever, it's normally he thinks that there should be less of the thing or the thing shouldn't be done. In this case, he thinks there should be extra effort. I don't imagine, I've never been to a surrogate or a baby shower with the surrogate involved, but I don't imagine anyone has ever thought, the surrogate, like an extra present should be brought for the surrogate.
No, I thought
normally
not
Larry
either.
would be like, well, like we shouldn't get her one. But in this case, he doesn't understand the protocol of, well, that's not what we do, Larry. We don't get surrogates presents. It's like, rather than being insistent on something that shouldn't happen, he's insisting on something that should happen. It was typical Larry in that he doesn't understand norms and customs, but the difference was, that he's adding something to the protocol rather than thinking something should be taken away or that it should be less than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, even the surrogate says in a later scene that it's her job to carry the baby. Like, she knows what she's in for.
Yeah, she didn't expect that giant panda. She's very appreciative of it, but it was just a different take on Larry's normal, I don't understand why this is a thing aspect of his personality that often comes up. It was just, rather than not, I could imagine this situation more being, if Cheryl would say, oh, and don't forget to get a present for the surrogate, and Larry going, why do I need to get a present for the surrogate? They're just, that's how I imagine Larry would be. Like, why would
I could imagine the opposite, yeah. He just questions everything.
Like, well, why wouldn't we get a present? It was a different take on that typical aspect of Larry's personality, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and I think that made perfect sense going in this direction because, yeah, you're right. It's not typical for a surrogate to get a present.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just doing their job. So I think it would have been really silly writing if Cheryl said, randomly, let's get a present for the surrogate. And then Larry's like, that's weird. Yeah. Because usually it's Larry that has all these weird thoughts, not Cheryl. Like, Cheryl's more, straight and narrow in terms of like how things work and stuff. She kind of knows her shit.
Yeah.
Whereas Larry has to like question everything.
Yeah, but Larry's questioning in this is like it's resulting in like something extra being brought to this social custom rather than taking something away or it being too complicated or whatever. He's kind of making it more complicated. Well, we all have to think of an extra present for this this third person. One thing that occurred to me is like maybe he's trying to be more thoughtful, you know, because the last few episodes, the carpool lane and the five wood, Larry's done some of his most like thoughtless and careless and meanest stuff. You know, maybe he's gone so far into the mean, thoughtless direction. He's trying to be extra thoughtful to sort of balance that out a bit or something. You know, maybe Cheryl's had a bit of a word to him, like, you've gone too far, Larry. You swapped a golf club out of a dead man's hand at his own funeral, and you know, you hung out with a sex worker, and you were a total asshole about I can't remember his name's dead
Marty.
Marty's
Marty's father, and you got Marty arrested for drug possession, even though that was your drugs.
You know, you've had this like 2 episodes of like Larry really going over the line, more so than normal. You've got to pull your head in a bit. Maybe he's trying to be extra thoughtful, but you know, overcompensate that.
Yeah, but later on, actually, Larry does have a little bit of snark later on in the episode. But anyway, we can talk about that when that scene comes up. But yeah, he kind of, yeah, you're right. He's not as mean in this episode.
No,
but he does a mean thing later on, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah,
but he's still learning somewhat.
Yeah, the fact that he even thought, whether it's a normal custom or not, you know, or a normal protocol or not, the fact that he even thought of his own volition, hey, maybe we should get the surrogate a present as well. Like that's not typical Larry to be extra thoughtful for someone who's ordinarily kind of forgotten in this sort of scenario.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that was a nice opening scene, and it was good to see some Seinfeld. You don't see Seinfeld too much on Curb.
No. Obviously, they don't want to taint it with too much Seinfeld. It's its own thing, but it's good to always be reminded of that link.
Yeah, of that link. And I love when Larry says, you know, at the end of the episode, it's like, oh, great show. And Cheryl's like, yeah, it was a great show. So he knows he wrote something special.
Yeah. I think, you know, Larry, for all of his lack of awareness of most of the world around him and how people think and operate in the world, he's definitely aware of culturally the impact that he's had with his writing and with the show.
Exactly. And now it's all on the internet. Seinfeldisms, wink, wink, and all that stuff. You know, that Seinfeld fandom is everywhere.
Indeed.
Larry is in the waiting room the next day, shuffling through magazines as he is called in for his physical. Larry says to the receptionist that the magazine collection needs to be updated, and he walks into the doctor's office. Larry walks on the treadmill to have his heart rate checked as he's complaining about the magazines to the doctor. And I think it's Dr. Jack. He was in, wasn't he the doctor who was the husband of the lawyer? Is that the same one? I think it's the same doctor, isn't it?
I think so.
From previous seasons? I think like season 1 or 2.
Familiar, but I can't pinpoint which episode.
Yeah, no,
you're probably right.
You know, he's the one where the lady lawyer tries to get money from Larry, and you know, it looks like Larry never has money on him, and he's trying to beg for money.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, I'll look at your finger, but you got to pay, you know, my wife, you know, her fee and stuff."
Yep.
I think it's that doctor. So obviously they must have figured out the money issue way back when. Yeah. I think it was like 2-3 seasons ago when it happened. Hopefully they could have. So obviously he's Dr. Jack, I call him. He's still seeing Larry.
Yep.
And he understands. I love with Dr. Jack how he really he knows how Larry thinks. And, you know, because Larry says all this dumb shit, and then Dr. Jack puts him in line. Is like, all right, Larry, I know, don't be an idiot. You got to do it this way. This is how you do things. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a doctor. I went to medical school. You know what I mean? Is like Larry, he just tries to keep him in line. I love that. Yeah, he knows how fucked Larry is.
Yeah, he knows how to keep Larry in line, and you know, I guess doctors in general probably have to deal with some difficult personalities and high stress situations where people are acting out of sorts for various reasons. So that, you know, he's probably got that skill anyway, but he definitely knows how to, you know, how to keep Larry in check.
Yeah, especially after what he did to his wife in terms of the fees. Yeah, he's probably a bit more. He wants to keep more in line after that.
Yep, he's less tolerant of his bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah. Ever since, I think, less tolerant, but ever since that incident, he's more focused on Larry.
Yeah, I can imagine him going into Larry mode. He's like, oh, my next patient's Larry, and he kind of turns on Larry mode to deal with him, and then once Larry leaves, he relaxes a bit.
Yeah, he's less tense.
Yeah.
Less fight or flight response with Larry.
That's it.
A beautiful nurse named Renee, who happens to be a woman who's Richard Lewis is also dating, walks in, and Larry's heart rate begins to increase as he is looking at her. His ECG begins to spike. Later on, the doctor says that Larry has an abnormality in his ECG and that he can't clear him for good health. Larry says there is nothing wrong with him. Dr. Jack says that he'll give Larry a heart halter to wear for 24 hours. If his heartbeat is normal when he comes back tomorrow, he'll clear Larry for the show. And Renee is applying the halter to Larry, and Larry is looking a bit, he's like, what the hell? I like that part. I just like his face. He's like, this beautiful woman is right up on me, putting stuff on my chest.
Yeah.
So it's great. Yeah, heart halter. Have you heard of one of those?
Not specifically. I mean, I think I've been aware of devices used to, monitor heart and gather data to, to assist with medical assessments, but not this sort of device specifically. No.
No, okay, yeah. I'm sure there's many of those kind of things, but yeah, it kind of makes sense. It just like it looks pretty like sleek. It looks like a like a '90s cell phone, in Larry's
Yeah.
pocket. It doesn't. It's not as not a. I was gonna be like a big chunky thing that he'd have to put on his belt or something.
Yeah.
That
No.
would have been a nice gag.
No, considering technology is always getting smaller and more sophisticated, but considering the state of technology in '04, I think when this episode came out, it's pretty discreet and pretty low key.
Yeah, these days they probably have like apps for it, and you connect something to your USB on your phone or some shit.
Someone just needs to gather data off your Apple Watch or whatever. So,
Oh, that too. Yeah, the wearables. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Much easier these days.
yeah.
Hey, Larry.
Hi, Renee.
How you feeling?
Later that day, Richard and Larry are out for lunch and talk about Renee. Richard asks if Larry has ever been with an African American woman. Larry says he's been with two. And I love when Richard says, what, at the same time? And Larry's like, no. No, two separate women. Richard says Renee is his first African American woman. Richard explains that he saw an NBA player take his towel off and he had a dick that could extinguish a Chicago fire. Richard says that he is intimidated about sleeping with her, and Larry offers to have Renee for his 10th anniversary gift. Richard accosts Larry for trying to get with his friend's girlfriend, and I understand that completely. I mean, you don't just, it's not like, say I had like an anniversary gift, right? And we were having lunch and you were talking about, your lovely fiance. And imagine if I was like, what if Kaylee became my 10th anniversary gift? You'd be pretty pissed off, wouldn't you?
I think it would depend how you said it. If you're saying it in a joking way, I'd probably laugh along with it. But if you were suggesting it, if there was any seriousness to your suggestion, even if it was a small amount of seriousness, I'd probably be...
Like what Larry does to Richard now.
Yeah, but if you were just like, haha, if you were making an obvious joke, that would be...
Yeah.
I'd probably find that funny. But yeah, if there was any hint of seriousness, I'd probably be a bit upset.
Yeah, of course. But that's what Larry does. There's a hint of seriousness towards Richard as well.
Yeah, if he was just joking with Richard, then yeah, I think that's just a funny joke between friends because they're kind of taking the piss out of each other. Like Larry's taking the piss out of the fact that he can't find a woman to sleep with, and also like making a joke. He's like offering his friend a favor because his friend's intimidated by the prospect of sleeping with her. But the fact that Larry is even half serious, is a bit inappropriate.
Yeah, it is inappropriate. I mean, Richard's like, you don't do that to your friend.
No.
You don't just offer, take their girlfriend. It's like, you can't do that shit.
Yeah.
I'm with Richard on this one.
And I also love the fact that it's not up to either of them. It's up to Renee. Like Larry can't just be like, oh, well, I'll fuck her. Then it's just going to happen. Like Renee.
I don't think Renee would
is
do
the
it.
one who's going to determine who is going to fuck her.
Yeah, I don't think Renee would do it anyway.
No,
Because,
she wouldn't do it anyway. But it's like, they're not even remembering that it's not up to them to decide who gets to fuck it. Like it's up to her. Even if they came to an agreement of like, yeah, you're right. Like, even if Richard felt okay with that, Larry assumes that it's going to happen. Like it would be up to Renee. I just find that funny.
It'd be up. Yeah, exactly.
That it's her decision, guys, not either one of yours.
Exactly. You can't just say we're going to do this. But yeah, no, I like I said, I don't think Renee would do it because obviously she's the nurse. She's Dr. Jack's assistant nurse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
she'd look at Larry as a patient going, oh, I can't screw patients like that.
Yeah,
that's
and
weird.
look, Larry, he obviously some women find him. I mean, Cheryl is a cat. She's a babe and she's smart and all of that, But Larry, I think, would be objectively speaking unattractive to most women just because of his age, maybe, and his who he is, I guess. So
I guess I probably wouldn't say unattractive. Probably more unappealing.
Unappealing,
especially when he opens his mouth. The second he opens his mouth and waffles, like he has done a couple of times earlier in the season. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. I appreciate that. That's a better way to put it because he would be. I mean, he's kind of like quirks and because he is charming and he is
when he wants to be.
He's witty when he can, from time to time. But yeah, I think once most women get to know him, even for a little bit, their initial attraction is extinguished because of something he said or some like just aspect of his personality that just make them go, oh, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking? Yeah, I know. It's like, no, but no, Larry, not unattractive. No, I wouldn't say he's unattractive, but no, I get what you mean. Obviously, he's unappealing. Yeah,
obviously, attraction is subjective, but there are people who you would describe as generally attractive and people who you would describe as generally unattractive Obviously not to everyone in every situation, but for the most part, I would put Larry just generally on the less attractive end of the spectrum. Again, purely because of his age. He's not like some handsome hunk. He's not like super charming and confident. Like he's a bit of a weirdo.
He's no George Clooney or anything.
Yeah, he's not George Clooney, but obviously people are complicated and they're more than just how they look and how their personality is. So yeah, but that's all I meant.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But no, but going back to that, at least like Richard, he was mildly offended. But in the next scene, Larry and Richard are walking out as Larry heads to the valet parking booth, and they kind of fist bump each other. So it sounds like they, Larry talked Richard around, and Richard's like,
yeah,
oh,
I know.
cool.
I think after you're friends with Larry for a while, you kind of expect that some inappropriate stuff's going to come out of his mouth. That's just par for the course. So Larry and Richard have said and done more inappropriate and fucked up things to each other than like a half baked suggestion that Larry screw his girlfriend. So it's not out of the bounds of the normal exchanges they have as friends. And if you want to be friends with Larry, you kind of got to accept that some weird stuff's going to be thrown out there.
He's weird, and that's who he is.
Yeah, you're just like, well, that's just par for the course. So let's. It's not going to be. It's not so bad. It hasn't crossed a line that that would dissolve their friendship. So
yeah, I mean they've done lots more worse shit than that.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's fine. It's what we've seen so far. So far, anyway, up until this point. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So this is nothing. Larry heads to the valet parking section and hands his ticket to an African American man in a suit. The man, and he's wearing a white shirt, a black vest, and a red tie. The man claims that they are not a valet, and he says he's waiting for his car, and that even black men can be serviced by valets. Larry is shocked and apologizes as the man says that he fucked up, and Larry kind of agrees. Like when this part came up, I'm like, holy shit, that is like,
Yeah.
Did you kind of cringe as well? It's like
I cringed a bit. It was one of those situations that we're confronted with at least once every couple of episodes where Larry's kind of half right and half wrong. Or not right and wrong, but maybe like half innocent and half guilty. He shouldn't be presumptuous, but at the same time, the guy was wearing a typical valet suit. He was standing next to the valet booth thing, and Larry was kind of half paying attention. So Larry wasn't just being like this arrogant rich person who thinks that, like, he wasn't being racist or insensitive, but he wasn't being very thoughtful either. It's that weird gray area that Larry kind of finds himself in a lot, where
actually,
he's not malicious, but he's not very thoughtful, or he's not very he doesn't consider the situation and sort of suss it out first. He kind of just makes an assumption innocently, but it obviously has some effects on people. So I think it's just a bad judgment, but not malicious judgment.
Yeah, and I think the joke, I think it works too because the man's an African American guy. If it was like a white guy, it probably wouldn't have been as like dark kind of humor, whereas like the fact it's an African American guy and he's actually like a customer. He was a patron of the restaurant waiting for his car. I think that kind of adds a bit of an edge to the joke.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think a similar sort of effect could have been achieved with anyone who's not white. I think that's a stereotype that like service jobs or lower level jobs are typically done by non-white
minorities
in America and stuff. So for the sake of the episode, because racial stereotypes and biraciality, which is a word that I'm still insisting exists, is a common theme through the episode. So it lines up in that way too.
It does. And seconds later, as the man grabs his car to drive off, Wanda Sykes glares at Larry from a distance and walks up to him in anger. Wanda accosts Larry for being racist as she says that they're filming something in the parking lot nearby. And like Wanda Sykes, she's back after a little while. I don't think we've seen her this season, I don't believe.
No, we haven't seen her for a while. I can't remember the last time we have seen her, but it's definitely been a while.
Yeah, it like she was in last season a few times, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, no, we haven't seen her much. I don't think we've even seen her at all this season, it was good to see her. But I'm glad they went with the take that she was actually filming something nearby. I mean, wouldn't have been weird if Wanda were just standing there randomly to glare at Larry. I think that would have been like a bit unrealistic. It's like a bit too stupid, a bit too loony.
Yeah, I mean, Curb works because you kind of have to suspend your belief that this many coincidences can occur in a day or in an episode or whatever, because Larry just finds himself in these like ridiculous situations where everything has to line up so well, and this person has to be at this place at the right time, or have overheard this thing that Larry said, and that's what we do as viewers and fans of the show. But yeah, you're right. If she was just walking past or walking into the restaurant or whatever and happened to see what the interaction between Larry and the African-American man, that would have been too much of a coincidence. It would have been a too far. Yeah, it would have been too unbelievable.
It would have been like real, like, like a fantastical, just
Yeah,
too much like a fantasy. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous. Like
yeah,
Wanda just stood there the whole time, doing like she was just there. Bob Bush is going to the restaurant or something. I mean,
like
they could
we're
have gone with that as well. But
yeah,
yeah.
totally. And I mean, like I said, we're as viewers, we're happy to accept that this many coincidences happen in the show generally, which probably wouldn't happen to most people in real life most of the time. We're
Mm.
happy to accept a level of that because that's what makes the show work. But yeah, this would have been too much of a oh come on, that's just too convenient for the sake of the sake of the plot or the sake of awkward situation unfolding sort of thing.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that in the background you can actually see the film shoot as well. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a nice touch there.
Totally, yeah. And I think the fact that you haven't seen Wanda for a while as well kind of makes it a bit more believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because she's the last person you expect. The longer between interactions, the more believable it is that they're going to turn back up because, it's not like they're turning up every episode, every time it would be convenient. It's just occasionally. So I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that adds a sense of like, oh, well, that, I can accept this situation. It's not too ridiculous.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Larry asks Wanda if there is a difference between sleeping with a black man and a white man in terms of penis size. And I love when Larry says, let me rephrase that. And she's like, you rephrase that. It's like,
Yeah.
you will rephrase that.
Yeah, try
It's
again,
like,
Larry. Swim
try
in
again,
this.
Larry.
Have another go.
Yeah.
Come on, tell me
Yes.
what you're thinking. Yeah.
Exactly. Wanda refuses to answer the question. Larry reacts as a bug lands on his face. Wanda asks if her script has been looked at by one of Larry's assistants or one of Larry's like writer buddies. He says that the person will look at it as he jokingly asks for a black man to get his car as Wanda walks off.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "Excuse me, is there a black man that can take my car? Excuse me, hello."
Mm, yeah.
And he's looking at Wanda right at the end, so he's just doing it to give Wanda shit as well.
Yeah, he's just mocking the situation. I think it's a sign of I can't remember the name of the episode, but where Larry, when they run into Richard's friend, who is the doctor while they're jogging, he's also an African American man.
Oh, the dermatologist, yeah.
Dermatologist, that's right. Like similar jokes in that episode play out where Larry is mistaken to be this racist, but it's just because he says dumb stuff or he's not thoughtful about situations or whatever. But in that episode, in those episodes, or in that episode, he's very like he sort of like he goes to a big effort to show that he's not racist. He's like, oh my god, like he feels bad, and he puts a lot of effort into like counteracting that impression that people have of him, or the mistaken impressions that people get of him. Whereas in this, he's just like, you know what, like I know that I wasn't racist, so he doesn't seem as concerned to be overly apologetic to. I mean, he doesn't apologize at all, or he doesn't offer any like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, that was so dumb to Wanda. He's just like, you know what, it wasn't racist, it was a mistake. You know what I mean? Like he feels less bad, or he has less of a need to show that, oh my god, no, I wasn't racist. Like he's just because he knows that it wasn't. Whereas in that episode with the dermatologist, the rest of the episode, he had to go to great lengths to show that he wasn't racist, even though it didn't work out for him. He was very apologetic. He was very concerned about the perception of him being a racist. Whereas in this, he's like, you know what? I wasn't racist. It was dumb. It was a mistake. I should have thought more about the situation before I presumed that this guy was the valet. But you know what? I'm not some racist person. So like, he seems less concerned about corrective sort of actions, or being apologetic to Wanda or even the black guy. Like he doesn't chase down the black
Yeah.
guy and the valet, or the mistaken valet, I should say. He doesn't chase him down and offer to, he just doesn't seem too invested or concerned in like any corrective behavior, because I think he thinks that, you know what, it was dumb, but I know who I am and I know what happened, so I don't care about Wanda's misperception of the situation.
Yeah, well, that is one thing, Steve, that I have noticed about Larry in this season. Like, in previous seasons, he'd be more forgiving and really make an effort to clear his name.
Yeah.
But I've noticed, like, in season 4, especially, like, last week's episode, where to get out of jury duty, he said that, the defendant was a Negro, so he'd probably cloud his judgment. Like, even doing shit like that, even, like, going out to make it look like he's racist as well, I don't think that's something that Larry would have done in earlier seasons.
No.
It's almost as if Larry is, like, doesn't give a fuck anymore. He's just like, I don't give a fuck what people think.
It's probably a case. It's probably a case of, you know what, people, like, no matter what I do or what I don't do, people think that about me anyway. Like, I can't undo such a reputational, damage to me. I'm just gonna like lean in hard.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what I'm thinking. It's like, you've noticed there's like, he's been doing that a lot this season. He's done stuff and he knows he's in the shit, but he doesn't do anything. It's like he just, you're right. He just thinks, people think of me this way. I try clearing my name and then things just get worse. So what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can be less concerned about cleaning up his reputation or making amends or whatever, without he can give less of a shit about that. That's fine, because he's like, well, people are going to think it anyway, so what's the point? He can be like that, and I would understand that, without the jury duty stuff. Was just still like, come on, man. Like, you can not care, but you can also not add to it, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really adding to it.
Yeah, you can be more blasé about it. Go, well, I can't control it. Whatever will be, will be. But you can also, not add fuel to the fire as well.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have
It
to go
just- yeah,
this. You don't have to lean into it this hard.
No,
Just stop caring as much. Don't add more ammunition to the people who already think that you're a racist.
And that's what he does. I mean, it's just really weird seeing Larry. It's like almost like a character development.
Yeah, well, I mean, Larry has always had this kind of like, I don't want to say nihilistic, because that's probably a bit too far, but there is a hint of like, I guess I can't think of a like lesser nihilism. I don't know what the word is to describe, but just well, what does it matter anyway? This kind of like, almost like a
More
futility.
like an apathy.
An apathy, or like a low level of futility, where it's just like, well,
Very
like,
fatalist mindset.
yeah, like low level fatalism, or or nihilism or something. It's not that extreme. It's not like he doesn't care about anything or anyone, or doesn't care about any consequences, but he just seems less and less concerned over time with going out and setting the record straight. As you said, he's just like, well, I tried to explain it, I apologized, and if they're not going to believe me or give me the benefit of the doubt, then I'll mock the situation instead. Like,
Which he does. He does the joke
just,
at the end of this scene.
Yeah, I think he just cares less. I don't think that's true for every aspect of what people think of him. It just seems to be so far that people think he's a racist. I think that's the one that he's just like, well, that's the one he seemed to have let go of the most of.
It's kind of like a running theme of the show. People
Yeah.
think he's racist towards black people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that racism is funny, but the general, field or topic of racial tension, or people misunderstanding people's intentions or behaviors as racist, like, just that whole area is ripe for comedy gold, for awkward, like, cringy comedy, which is what Kirby is. It's ripe for, there's so much to mine from that area. So, it makes sense that it keeps coming up, because it's, there's so much you can get from it for this sort of style of awkward, cringy comedy that Curb is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. In the next scene, Larry is at the toy store to get a gift for the baby, and he asks the saleswoman, played by Melissa McCarthy, if the doll is the last one. She says it is, and that it is a biracial doll, and Larry says he'll take it. And he's asking questions like, so, yeah, if there's a half black, half white couple, I guess you get this doll. Or what if there's like a half Asian? I'm guessing if there's a half Asian, half white couple, there's one for them as well. And I love how Melissa's character is like, she just doesn't care. She's just a sales, like, she works at the toy store. She doesn't know about the the nuances of biracial toys.
Yeah,
she's like, I just sell the toys. I don't know. I just work here casually. I got no idea.
And look, even if she does have like well-developed and well-informed opinions about racism in America, or the aspects of that biracial people may experience in life, I think she's just like, even if she knows about that stuff, or has opinions about that stuff, or feelings about that stuff, in this situation right now with Larry, it's just buy the toy and fuck off. Like, this is not the time or the place to have like discussions about complicated social and political topics. Like, I'm working, man. Like,
yeah.
If you want to talk about this stuff, meet me at the end of my shift and we'll go down to the bar and have a chat or something. I don't know. And she's
and it's just
kind
the
of
way
like
I
shrugging,
saw it.
like, maybe, like, she's trying to be nice to him, and
she's
like,
trying to be polite.
She's trying to be polite and listen to him, but she's also like, who cares, man? Like, just buy it or don't. Just,
that's her internal monologue. She's just like, hurry the fuck up.
Yeah.
She's like, that's a very, very short scene. It only goes for like a minute.
Yeah.
It's quite short. Yeah, but it's good to see Melissa in a very early role.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if she returns again to Curb. I got no idea, but I guess we'll find out as we go through the seasons.
Yeah,
she might play another character or something.
We'll find out.
We will. The scene cuts to Betty's baby shower. She's opening gifts. The surrogate is standing in the back of the room, away from everyone else. Larry tells Cheryl about the heart holter issue, and he asks if Betty's husband looks like someone, and Cheryl says no. Larry says she always disagrees with him about that kind of stuff. I always say if someone looks like someone, you say no. They get into a typical David's argument about that kind of stuff. Betty opens their gift, and Larry's, which is the doll, and Larry says, yeah, it's a mulatto. The crowd goes silent, and Betty says they're called biracial.
Yeah, and he's like, no, not right, not cool.
No good.
No good.
No good. It's like he's in a stand-up comedy gig and he says a joke and the crowd just goes silent.
Yeah,
It's
like
like, what? No
I think
good?
this is another example of him giving less of a shit of people's perceptions or misperceptions that he's a racist. Because
Yes.
like if this happened in season 1 or 2 and he said mulatto and everyone went silent and looked at him, he'd be more like a deer caught in the headlights of like what did I like he'd be more concerned or more
Yes.
worried about
That
the
definitely
situation.
adds
But he's
to it,
just
huh?
like he's just playing it off like what no like So he definitely gives less of a shit because he's like, well, I can't control it, so if I put my foot in it, I put my foot in it, whatever, like
That's the way it
he
goes.
cares less.
He does. He does. This is the way it goes. I just love it. Yeah. Now, what we said last scene, you made a great point. Yeah, says Larry is like, this is what people think of me. There's nothing else I can do. So fuck
Yeah,
it. Just do what I
fuck
can
it.
do.
Yep.
They see a second gift from the Davids. And they're about to open it, but Larry says it's for the surrogate as the surrogate comes to take it out of Betty's hands. And she walks off for the gift, and Cheryl glares at Larry. Later on, Larry goes up to the surrogate. She thanks him for the gift, and they have some small talk about different stuff. Larry tells her about Wanda's script situation, and she calls the script her baby. And she talks, and the way he's explaining it causes the surrogate to get upset. So Larry says things like it's her baby, she's got to look after it, doesn't matter what people think, she should hold on to the baby. It's kind of like like a metaphor. No, not a metaphor. What is it like? What's the word?
Well, it is technically a metaphor,
A
but Larry,
metaphor, right?
Larry, it's just a coincidence that the surrogate, it's planting ideas in the head that maybe the surrogate doesn't want to let go of this baby. It's giving her doubts about, well, I don't want to, it's making her realize that she doesn't want to relinquish this baby. And it's just the word baby. If Larry was using the word script, if he said, people don't want to give up their script and they don't want to let go of their script, I think it's just the word baby over and over and over and over
Yes.
again. And the
Yes.
direct comparison to the thoughts and feelings that obviously this surrogate has had and squashed before now. It's just the baby thing is just the word baby is just like hammering her home sort of thing for her. It makes her realize that, ooh, like my doubts are stronger than I thought they were.
Yeah, I'm getting attached to this baby. I,
Yeah.
I feel like the surrogate, it might be her first rodeo for doing this
Mm.
kind of stuff. Because if she's done it like 2, 3 times, she'd be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I know what to do.
Yeah, I think
It's all good.
it seems like she, and I mean, I'm sure it probably happens to even to experienced surrogates because you are growing a life. I can't speak from experience because I can't get pregnant, and even if I could, I've never been pregnant. But I imagine, even if you are intellectually well aware, like this is not my baby, it's as soon as this baby's born, it's going to be given to the parents. You still form a bond with it because it's growing inside of you. And it's still hormonally, it's still like you still form a, as the surrogate mother, you still form a biological and hormonal and emotional attachment to this child. So even for experienced surrogates, I'm sure they experience some of that separation, loss, or anxiety, or something similar. Even if intellectually they know what's happening, they know that it's just they are kind of just in a functional role for these parents who can't have a baby on their own naturally. They are just an employee of them technically, but the actual hormonal, biological, and emotional feelings and aspects would be there. I think for all surrogates, whether it's their first or their 10th.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you
to be
can't avoid
there.
that.
Yeah.
Like those. I don't know the name of a chemical, but there is a chemical that's released as soon as a woman, or as soon as someone finds out they're pregnant, or starts to feel pregnant, or I don't remember the exact time in that process, but it's probably even straight away. It just like it makes. It kind of takes over, and that's that probably that motherhood instinct. It kind of just kicks in. We just become super protective, and every decision that is about my baby. Unborn baby or born baby. It's like that sort of motherly instinctive bond that's formed straight away. So I think it's understandable that she has those doubts, but obviously Larry pushed her over the edge by saying baby
Yes.
a lot in a
Just
short amount of time.
keeps saying baby and it goes subliminally in her mind.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
it was pretty clever actually how it sort of tipped her over the edge just by Larry innocently saying baby, 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 and comparing a script and writer's protectiveness of a script to that maternal instinct that the surrogates obviously. I think the surrogate as
Yes.
well, she's probably experienced those doubts and those feelings all the way through the pregnancy, but she's been able to suppress them until this situation, it's more real now that Larry's like said baby, baby, baby 100 times.
Yeah. And I think it's probably the first time that someone, to the surrogate's eyes anyway, it's like someone is on her side.
Yeah.
Because I could imagine with surrogacy, it's all about the mother and the father and the surrogate. Just like in the last scene, the surrogate's just in the background. She
Well,
just
yeah,
does her job. You know what
like
I
I
mean?
said, the surrogate is obviously they're doing a very important thing that and they're not just volunteering their time for a job. It's like their body and their lifestyle, and like they can't. It's more than just I'm just working 40 hours a week and pay me money. It's like
No.
it's
It's
life
taken
changing.
over their life.
And
Yeah.
even after the baby's born and their role is finished, it's still like, there's still a lot of complications after birth, and it's still,
And
massive.
maybe if they want children one day, maybe it might, having someone else's baby might affect their chances of having another baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
I
stuff
don't
like
know
that.
enough about that sort of stuff to really have an opinion, or I don't know. I'm too dumb when it comes to that stuff. But
I'm
yeah,
sure you'll learn soon enough.
maybe. Yeah, I'm announcing my retirement from podcasting, and I'm going to become a surrogate.
A surrogate dad. Good for
Surrogate
you.
dad.
Like
Yeah.
like Junior Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly. I watched that movie actually over my COVID isolation, and it inspired me to new year, new me, and that's the
Yes.
direction I'm taking.
New year, new you, and new baby.
Exactly. Yep. So
Perfect. That's excellent. I'm so proud of you.
thank you, man. I'm just happy to bring happiness into other people's lives by offering them a service I can't provide because I don't have the. Anyway, we'll get off this
Just
weird
remember,
line of conversation. We're ranting a bit.
just remember, it's your baby. You got to protect it.
That's true. Yeah, I just won't get into any. I just won't ask.
I can.
I won't ask any TV writers about what's the emotional process of a writer letting go of the script. Tell me about that, and use the word "baby" a lot, please. I'll avoid that conversation.
Yeah, you don't want to run with a giant panda in your hands. Run
No.
from the angry, seething bridal shower, as we look at later.
I'm just thinking as well. I think the bridal shower is probably amplifying those feelings as well, because it's like, it's a representation of parenthood. It's a celebration of this forthcoming baby. That's probably adding to this pressure that's been building up inside her about not wanting to let the baby go as well. Like all the people around and expressing love for this baby and gifts and talking about the baby. I think that's added to her decision to not let it go either.
Yeah,
well,
I think so too.
That situation.
But yes, well, we see what happens later on after what Larry plants in her head.
She just gave a script to me to give to somebody. She said, "Don't let him touch my baby," That's what they do. You work on something for months and months, then they take it away from you, and then that's it. You never see it again. They take your baby from you, they give your baby to somebody else, and that's it.
Larry and David are rehearsing David Schwimmer are rehearsing as Mel walks in. Mel comments on Larry still being on the book for his lines, and David says, because David's pissed off because Larry talked about the lack of cashews in Health Glow in the previous episode. So David, you can see David's not too happy with Larry, because even he says, like, we're performing in 3.5 weeks and you're still on the book. Are you too old for this? He's really he's really passive aggressive towards Larry at this point.
Yeah, he's just annoyed at him, and he's kind of just having a go. He's just digging in a bit because he's already annoyed at him. Yeah,
yeah, like not like Ben Stiller, like lunatic, but
no.
he's getting
being a bit
there
more
slightly.
reserved, but he's obviously
Yeah.
Larry's rubbed him the wrong way about the cashew raisin ratio business idea, and
From a few
Larry,
episodes ago, yeah.
I could imagine Larry still bringing it up, like even, to this day,
Yes.
to this scene, Larry's still suggesting it, and David just being pissed off because he's not letting it go or something. Larry just insisting over and over and over and over again. And he does in this scene, so,
He does. Mel asks for their doctor's orders. David shows his and he's clean. Larry tells Mel about the heart halter, but there's nothing wrong with him. Larry and David begin arguing and Mel ends the argument. David's dad, Irving, turns up and shows David some pictures of his trip to Spain. Larry reassures Mel that he will be fine. David introduces his dad to Mel, who is a fan of his work, and Mel says he's got to go for a few minutes. David introduces Larry to his dad, Irving, as he shows pictures, like I said. Larry's dad walks off. It's implied that David... Well, actually, we find out that, when Irving meets Larry, Irving is very reserved towards Larry. He's like, okay, yeah, it's you. And he walks off. And then Larry says, why did you have to tell your dad about the lack of nuts in Health Glow packets? And that's the reason why Irving isn't happy with Larry. Larry offers to call Irving to apologize, and he gets his number from David. But David says, don't call him before 7, or don't call him after 7 p.m. So, so we can see that David has obviously said off screen about Larry's thoughts about the lack of cashews, and Irving, being very proud of his business, is probably very offended.
Yeah, he would take it. He's a experienced nut and raisin businessman. I don't know what the professional term is for that. A nut man, a raisin,
fruit and nut technician,
snack man, professional
snack
man,
man,
professionally a snackman,
a snack mogul.
A snack mogul. He's a healthy snack mogul. He's a
Yes,
leader in
yes,
the
yes.
health snack community. And then you've just got this like young upstart. Metaphorically young, business, in terms of business experience, upstart coming in and telling him how to set his ratios. And it's probably a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm sure David has complained to Irving, about Larry, about, he's probably annoying at rehearsals, and he keeps, he's probably just complained about Larry, like all of who Larry is, and Irving's just gotten this impression because obviously they're very close.
And he's still going by the book, Larry, and they're performing in 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
By this point, God, you're going to be on Broadway for fuck's sake. You got to get your lines down now. You
Yeah.
got to know them. You got to be able to like memorize them in your sleep. You know what I mean? They've got to be like a part of you at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. So good. So I think David is a bit pissed off at him as well because he's probably trying to do scenes with Larry, but Larry just keeps reading. They can't do eye contact. Larry keeps looking down his paper. So that's probably like ruining the immersion for David as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Dave, Larry's usually behind the camera, not in front of it. So, David is an actor more than a writer, or I don't even know if he is a writer or a producer or a director or anything.
He's probably done some things, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but in 2004, he's probably still mostly just acted. So,
yep.
Larry is not normally acting at all, like other than a few random bit appearances in Seinfeld and, a couple of bits and bobs here. He's mostly he's the creative force. He's behind the camera. So, he's probably not taking it seriously because that's not normally what he does. He doesn't understand the level of commitment that David would, because that's his job.
Especially theatre actors too, because you've got to remember all your lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you can't just reshoot or do another take.
Yeah.
Take 5.
It's not like exactly. It's not like screen acting where you can just do like another take, quickly read your lines and go back.
Yeah.
It's all like live. You got to do everything right. So it's quite an art.
Totally.
In the next scene, Larry is in his car and he pulls over to call Irving to apologize for what happened. Larry is starting to leave a message on his voicemail and he begins cursing at another driver who runs into the back of him. He gets out and confronts the driver who pulls out a crowbar. Larry spontaneously fakes having a heart attack and pulls out his heart halter to stop him from getting beaten up. The driver tries to help him as someone is calling an ambulance. That's a quick thinking by Larry with the heart halter.
Yeah, I mean, it's short-term solution to diffuse, getting you. I mean, this guy could have literally killed Larry.
Oh yeah, he had the crowbar and he's going at him. Yeah, it was full.
Yeah, it's like it went from what, like 3 or 4 lines exchanged to let me get my crowbar so I can beat your head in. Like,
and it was in his back seat too. Like, what are you doing around fucking with a crowbar in your back seat? Jesus.
Yeah, it escalated very, very quickly.
It did.
So yeah, definitely quick thinking on the part of Larry to diffuse the situation, but it obviously leads to more problems.
It does, yes. Later on, it does. But yeah, it's funny. Yeah, and even the driver's like, he's pissed off, even though it was his fault. He's still pissed off, but but when he sees Larry have his pretend heart attack, he's like, "Oh shit! Someone call an ambulance! Help him!" Yeah. He doesn't want to beat a guy who's having a heart attack. That's pretty.
No. He's not he only beats old men who are healthy. He doesn't beat. He's not a road rage coward.
Yeah, at least give Larry the decency and give him a crowbar and fight equally.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You're not a noble person.
Yeah, and it's like, well, the heart attack's doing the job that I was intending to. So, well, my job here is done. I'll just help this guy out now.
Yeah, that's all I've done. Wow, what a murderous cunt this guy.
Yeah, he's an angry motherfucker.
Angry indeed. LA aggression right there.
Yeah. And it's not like he was in the wrong. He backed into Larry. Also,
of course, he drove into Larry's rear end.
Yeah, sorry, I meant he hit Larry. He hit Larry's in the back. So it's not like he was angry because Larry hit him. It's like
no.
He's angry because he just doesn't like being like acute. Well, he doesn't like being told that he made a mistake.
Exactly, and he would have done that to anyone. I reckon, like if you ran into anyone other than Larry, it would have been the same. Man, woman,
I mean, if you want to pull a
crowbar, old, young, whatever.
Oh, totally. I mean, if you're that angry, you're not going to decide to pull a crowbar based on who you're angry at. It's just you're in my way and I will beat you to death regardless of who you are.
Those crowbars can do some pretty serious damage.
Oh, I mean, one crowbar to the head and you'd be dead.
Yeah, exactly. Head skull crushed in, brain crushed.
Yeah. I mean,
that's it.
I mean, you can get punched in the head and die. So crowbar is gonna cave your skull in. And if it doesn't do
luckily,
the subsequent smacking of the head on the gutter or the road will finish the job.
So yeah, very lucky. That could have been the end of Larry right there.
That's it. Anyway, we're getting pretty dark. So yeah,
We are.
let's talk about heart attacks instead.
Indeed, yeah. Let's talk about something a bit more, non-voluntary,
Yeah,
something that can just happen.
non-skull crushy.
No, that's right. That's right. But just as deadly. The scene cuts to Larry getting into the ambulance, and he keeps telling the paramedics that he faked the heart attack as they put him in. He's driving to the hospital, or they're driving to the hospital, and as he drives past, he spots the surrogate holding her giant panda being chased by the baby shower down the street with her present. It's implied that she wants to keep the baby. I was a bit confused, Steve, about the timeline of this, because I assume this car incident and the crowbar incident was a bit later on in the day. Like, was the baby shower still going or something? I had the timelines confused. What did you think of this?
I think
Were they still there for like another several more hours, or like
they
what
could
happened?
be. I mean, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of people there, and when Larry turned up, it was it seemed like lunchtime, maybe, or late morning.
Yeah.
Or early afternoon. So it could have been 2 or 3 hours. I mean, maybe I've never been to a baby shower or had a baby shower, but the ones that my partner has, and I think they've lasted like 4, 5, 6 hours, and maybe even gone on longer if there's lots of people there. It takes a while for everyone to leave.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
It could have been like the baby shower started at lunchtime. Larry turned up at 1 when they were opening the presents. By the time this fake heart attack incident occurred, it was 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Most people are still there. Yeah, I don't think it's that much of a stretch.
It's just great. It's a great visual, like, to see all the baby shower just run after her.
Yeah.
And she's like, 20 paces away from them, like 10 paces from them, and she's just like running.
Like I said,
and she's got that little shuffle because she's pregnant.
Yeah, but she's still, for a pregnant woman, she's moving fast.
Yeah, and considering she's so late in the pregnancy too.
Yeah,
because she gives birth she's almost right away.
She's days away from popping, and she's going fast.
So she must have had a big outburst after Larry left and said, "I can't do this. The baby's mine." Everyone's like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?"
As George Costanza say, "I can move, baby.
I can move, baby. Oh, we can move. Yeah, exactly. Pulp can move, baby."
Yep. So Pulp can move. She's Pulp in this situation. Pulp can move.
He can, baby. In the hospital, a nurse tells Larry that black and white guys are the same, as she is biracial. Larry asks about the mulatto name, which is not used anymore, and the nurse calmly says, "No, we don't use that anymore." Like, she seems pretty patient. Well, she's a nurse. I mean, you get all different types.
Yeah, and I think it's a case of, like, this nurse can tell that Larry is not racist or has any racist ideas. I think he just, he's an older man with just, a bit of a vernacular that's a bit old-fashioned. So, she's not going to be like, "Oh my God, you're a racist. How dare you say that?" It's just like, this guy's fine. He just needs to be brought up to date about what is and isn't acceptable to say.
Yeah, for sure. It's good that the nurse kind of puts him in line too.
Yeah, and she is a nurse. She's got her first priority is to make sure that he's okay before going off about a word that isn't acceptable anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So, no, it's good. And I think he puts the mulatto situation finally to bed. He's like, okay, mulatto's inappropriate. I'll stop using it.
Yeah.
Cheryl walks in to see if Larry's okay, and the nurse leaves as Cheryl talks to Larry and says, "Is everything okay? What's happened? Blah, blah, blah." Larry explains what happened with the driver, and Cheryl wonders why he's taking up a hospital bed. She says that Larry seems to be having a good time in the hospital. It's like, she's like, "What am I doing here?" What is this?
Yeah, it's one of those situations where kind of Larry is not totally in the right or totally in the wrong. It was the right idea for him to fake a heart attack because it diffused a potential situation where he was either going to get killed or like permanently heinously injured. So that's good, but at the same time, he's now wasted a hospital ride, an ambulance ride in a hospital bed. So it's a grey situation. It's like, well,
another grey situation.
What was Larry supposed to do? Just cop a beating because he shouldn't have taken up a hospital bed because that would have sent him to hospital anyway.
Exactly. He'd still be in that bed regardless.
Yeah. I'd rather overall, it's like, well, Larry, I'm glad you're in hospital for a fake injury than a real injury,
Of course. If he survived it. Otherwise he'd be on a slab in the morgue.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, Cheryl's got a very fair point of like, well, what, like you are wasting resources and time, and this bed could be used for someone who's got a real issue, not you. Then Larry says, like, well, what did you want me to do? Like, get beaten to death? So exactly,
yeah, he's got a good point there.
They're both right. Larry's right and he's wrong as usual. It's great.
Indeed. She says that Larry. I was going to say. She says that the surrogate is in labour in the same hospital as she wants to keep the baby, and that the husband says that Betty's husband wants to kick Larry's ass. Larry gets discharged, and Larry and Cheryl are in a very packed elevator, and the door opens, and the surrogate is in a wheelchair holding her baby. Larry yells out that he was talking about a script, not a literal baby, as the door shut. I was talking about a script.
Yeah.
Larry and Richard are in a restaurant bathroom. Larry explains the whole mulatto situation. Larry says he's off to the doctor and he's going to see Renee later on, obviously when he goes to see Dr. Jack. Former NBA player Tyrone Muggsy Bogues walks into the bathroom and the guys are impressed to see him. And I looked at him and I was like, he looks very familiar. He was one of the basketball players in Space Jam. That's how I remember him. He's the short guy.
Yeah, so
The
Muggsy
guard.
Bogues, he's most famous. I don't know if the record still stands. It probably still does. But I was a big fan of his in the 90s when I was a massive fan of NBA when I was a kid. I used to collect basketball cards and all that.
We all did. Yeah.
We all did, yeah. I think most guys who are our age probably had a little NBA card collecting phase.
What was your team? The Hornets, was it?
No, the Knicks. Well, the Hornets.
Oh, the Knicks. Yeah.
The Hornets and then the Knicks.
I love the Bulls, of course. Michael Jordan, Pippen. All those guys. Rodman later on.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
I mean, rightfully so. They were, the greatest team of all time. Muggsy Bogues he was in the NBA, so automatically he's good. But in the context of the NBA, he was an average player. Like he wasn't like, I don't know, John Stockton or Gary Coleman. Sorry, not Gary Coleman. What's his name?
I was going to say Gary Coleman wouldn't be a good basketball player.
It's Gary. It's Gary someone. It begins with
Gary someone. Patrick Ewing, all those players.
No, I'm just saying, like, he wasn't an exceptionally good guard as a player. Like,
a guard, right.
If you look at his stats, as a player or as a guard, they're good, again, because he's in the NBA. You've got to be good to be in the NBA. But, compared to other NBA guards and players at the time, he was pretty average. But he was mostly famous for being the shortest ever NBA player in the history of the league. 5'3".
So like 1.8 meters. No,
he was
1.6 or something.
He's 5'3".
Oh, that's really short. Yeah.
I always remembered his height because my mum is 5'3", and
same height.
It was an association I always remembered. So that's what he was famous for more than his skill as a basketball player. It was because he was the shortest ever. That record may be different now. I don't know. That was in the 90s and the 2000s. But yeah, if he's not still still the shortest player ever, he's probably one of a handful.
For sure.
And that reputation and that record, because that's what most people know him for, I think adds to this joke because they were talking about. Was it Richard who saw a center or a forward? Which are the taller players? The 6'10s and the 7'1s. They're
the
usually
dick that can take out the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, they're usually the tallest players on the team. They're the high sixes and the early 7-footers, and the guards are usually the shorter guys. Still tall, but short compared to the others. I think the fact that they use Muggsy Bogues, who is the shortest NBA player in history, adds to the joke, which is that this guy had a massive fire hose dick. Not only because he's African American, but because he is a very tall African American. So I thought it was a smart choice in who they could have used, because it's like, well, we'll use the shortest player, so by extension, he must have the shortest dick in the NBA.
Yeah, and that's what they were talking about, Larry and Richard in the restaurant in a previous scene. They're like, the guards probably aren't that big. Yeah,
exactly, because they're not as tall. But
not as tall. Yeah,
I really like the fact that they didn't just use any guard; they used the shortest guard ever.
That's funny. Muggsy goes to take a leak as Larry tries to look at his dick. It's implied it's massive as Tyrone is about to hit Larry. Larry does the heart attack trick once more, and Tyrone asks if he's okay. So Tyrone this time he didn't have a crowbar with him, but he was ready to swing his fist.
Yeah, I thought he handled, being confronted by two fans in the toilet. Like, that's a pretty awkward place to sort of meet fans and shake hands and exchange pleasantries. He handled that pretty well, and he's like, okay, guys, like, time for me to go to the loo. And then just two guys, like, peering down, perving at his apparently, freak-sized dick.
Yeah.
I think he has a right to go off here.
He does.
I'm on Muggsy's side on this one. I don't think he ever reacted. He's like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on. I've already been nice to you halfway to the toilet. Like, fuck off, you weirdo.
Exactly. Did you notice that he saw Larry look at him, but he didn't notice Richard?
I didn't notice that, no.
Yeah, so he looks at Larry and then he gets angry, but Richard was looking at his dick too. But Muggsy didn't see Richard look at it. So that's why he didn't attack Richard. He would have probably just yelled or attacked both of them.
Yeah, I guess he would have just reacted to whoever he first noticed.
And it happened to be Larry, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Larry probably had like the most obvious glare, whereas Richard was probably more subtle.
Yeah. And Larry's a bit taller as well, so,
Yeah, he was taller than Muggsy.
Well,
I live by a little bit, I think.
Most people are taller than Muggsy.
Of course, yeah, you and me. Even I'm taller. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. Larry is heading to the medical clinic to Dr. Jack, and he's walking up, and an African-American man is walking past, and he locks his car as the man walks past it. The man asks Larry if he thought that he would steal the car, which he denies. That's terrible timing by Larry. And of course, Wanda once again looks at a distance and goes up to Larry as they are shooting another scene very close by to the medical center. Of course, the film set is wherever Larry is. Makes perfect sense. The man, maybe they're doing a documentary on Larry's life. It's like one of those fly on the wall documentaries. And Wanda's narrating it or something. He's a very sick individual. He hates black people.
Yeah.
Let's watch his day-to-day life. Probably something like that, if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, if you actually look in the background of all of the episodes of all the scenes in this episode, you actually see people with cameras in the bushes, filming, paparazzi following, Larry all throughout. They're trying to catch him.
Exactly, and then they got like the film's shoot like several feet away from it.
Grainy 8mm footage of Larry being a horrible racist.
Oh no, it's part of an expose for something. Wanda's doing an expose. She wants to become a journalist or something. Yes, really has it in for him. Wanda once again goes up to Larry to accost him for his perceived prejudice. Wanda calls Larry's car a piece of shit anyway, and that no black man would want it. They want something with a bit more get up, she says. She asks Larry if Mark, that's the name of Larry's writer friend, looked at the script, or producer friend, I believe. Larry said he looked at it but didn't like it. Wanda asks if she told him if he told Mark if she was a black woman who wrote the script to get it over the line. And Larry said, no, I never said that. And Wanda's like, sometimes you got to play that card to get stuff done. A liberal wants to feel good when they say, oh, I'm a liberal and I'm helping a black woman. When you got to know when to play the card. And Larry says he'll say to her to Mark that she's black.
Yeah, and then she says something.
So I'm a brown skin black, not one of those white skin, light blacks.
Yeah, like really,
I'm real black.
Really sell the point that I'm black.
I'm really black.
Really sell it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't really a fan of this scene. I thought the joke, had kind of been done with the parking valet, and it was done a lot better because there was more. I don't know. Just it was smarter. I think the Larry that misunderstood that this African American guy dressed in a typical valet costume, standing next to a valet stand, was the valet. I just thought like a coincidence of beeping your car, locking your car, and an African American bloke walking past, and the guy going, "Oh, well, that you must have done that because of me." Must have thought. I was just like, I don't know. It was just the same joke, but just I don't know, not as inspired or something.
I get what you mean.
I thought they could have just like Wanda comes to Larry's house, or they run into each other again without the other racist, without the car lock thing. I don't know. It just didn't. It was just, and the implication again. Obviously, we don't think and Larry technically is not a racist person. It's just misperceptions based on thoughtless and unfortunate coincidences with involving him. But it's like it's so much of a stretch to suggest that like whenever you lock your car, you got to look around and make sure that there's no non-white people around in case they think that you are locking it because of them. It's just I just thought it was a bit too much of a stretch to show that Larry's this insensitive racist. I was like,
I just think the comedy was more like the really bad timing of the lock. Just the fact that the man happened to be at the car and Larry didn't
I just don't think any reasonable person, regardless of their race or their history or their experience, would assume if they were walking past a car and it locked and their white owner was 5 meters away. I don't think any reasonable person, and I know that this is a TV show and that it's fantastical and that, we also in this episode, we've also talked about how most of the coincidences are unbelievable, but we suspend our belief as a viewer, for the sake of the show. I just thought no one in real life, I don't think ever, unless they're a fucking Looney Tune, would assume that someone has locked their car just because they're walking past and just because they happen to be, African American or a different minority.
Yeah, I get you.
It was just, his reaction was so ridiculous. and I couldn't, I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe that does happen and, people do react like that. I don't know. But
I reckon it would have
just
been
seemed
probably
so ridiculous it just took me out of the scene. I just didn't. They could have set up Wanda and Larry meeting and having the same interaction exactly the same way. Wanda still thinks he's a racist. Larry, still is always defensive about it and cares less and less about it. They could have had the exact same exchange without that stretch of a scene or that.
You make a good point. You know what would have made this scene funnier? It would have been funny if Larry just locked the car and maybe the guy just turned around and looked at Larry and went like, "Really?" Maybe like said something like that and then just walked off. And then Larry's like,
"Yeah."
what?
If he just turned around and like shook his head, like,
yeah, or like, "What? Really? Like seriously?"
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I don't know. I can't, don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but, I'm a white dude. I've never experienced real racism or any racism in my life before. So, that's where I'm coming from. But
Fair enough.
like, I can't put myself in a situation where I can imagine anyone reacting, assuming that, this old white dude's locking their car because, I happen to be standing next to it or walking past it, and because I'm African American or whatever.
That's
It just seems so ridiculous I don't know, I just didn't buy it. And it was unnecessary. You've already made the joke, and you made the joke in a far better way. It's just rehashing a joke, and it just seemed uninspired and kind of unnecessary for me.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Well, it's the way it goes. Larry is in the waiting room reading a golf magazine and sees a golf tip in it as he tries to do it, and he seems very impressed. He walks up to the receptionist as his name is called, and he's impressed with the new magazines. Larry is in Dr. Jack's office on the treadmill. Renee walks in, and he avoids looking at her. She tells Dr. Jack that Betty's husband, Bernie, who wants to kick Larry's ass, will be here in 10 minutes. Larry's heart rate begins to go up again on the ECG. So you think, Larry's not looking at Renee, and he's like, everything's good, I'm smooth sailing. He probably had like another couple of minutes left on the monitoring, and he was in the clear. But spikes again when he hears Bernie's going to come and kick his ass.
Yeah, bound to happen. It was never going to, the second time round was never going to go well for Larry.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, no, you thought maybe he'd be in the clear, but then something turned up. So do you think Larry ran in? I feel like Larry probably stopped, like Dr. Jack was going to tell him his results, and then Larry just was like, fuck this, I'm going. I got to go, sorry. He probably just missed Bernie.
Maybe because of Dr. Jack's and Larry's history, Larry doesn't feel like he can be honest with him. But
no,
I feel like the whole situation could have been resolved if Larry, once they're on their own, if Larry just explained, look, the reason why I got a spike in my heart rate last time was because of she walked in, I got turned on, blah blah blah. It was Renee. Whereas in this one, he's like, oh, look, I've got a bit of a beef with, what's his name?
Bernie.
No.
Yeah.
Bernie. Like Bernie probably wants to kick my ass. Like if you just explained why there's a spike in the heart rate, the doctor might have, been a bit annoyed, but I think he would have been understanding and then just rescheduled another time or come back later today or whatever.
Well, that's probably what happened because Larry in a later episode, Larry is still rehearsing for the producers.
Yeah, obviously it's
something came up.
It didn't get him kicked out of the producers. But I think if Larry just said, "Look, I don't have a heart defect. It's just that both times, first time I got turned on, and the second time I was anxious about getting my ass kicked," it just would have simplified the situation for Larry.
Of course. It would have been a shitty way if he had to get out of the producers because of that. But it sounds like it got resolved because he will be in the producers later on. In the final scene, Larry and Cheryl are in bed watching Seinfeld on TV, and he's fiddling with his heart halter. Cheryl said that the surrogate changed her mind and will give the baby back to the couple. Larry says once the halter is off, then he can go back to the producers. The episode ends, and the phone from the crazy friend Marilyn is ringing, and they ignore it. They think it's Marilyn. The voicemail kicks in, and then it's Irving Schwimmer on the end, and he's responding to what Larry yelled at before, calling him all kinds of nasty names as Larry and Cheryl look at the phone. And then the episode ends.
Yeah, so an unexpected ending. I thought it would just be, them sort of wrapping it up by talking about it in bed and going to sleep. But then the voicemail was like a nice little cherry on top that I completely forgot about because so much has happened since Larry left that accidentally abusive voicemail. He's faked a heart attack and he went to hospital and surrogate ran away and blah, blah, blah. And then it was just, they do that sometimes where you forget about. It's kind of like, it reminds me actually last week in the carpool lane where, Larry has the jacket, he buys the weed and he keeps it in his jacket. And then so much happens. Right. And then, again, I can't remember his name. Why can't I remember his name?
Oh, Marty gets done.
He gets arrested for drug possession. And you kind of forget about it. You're like, oh, that's right. Larry bought weed and that's right. It's in his jacket. It kind of reminded me of that. You're like, oh, that's right. Larry
you forgot about the Irving,
voicemail. Obviously that's got to pay off somewhere. So it was a nice way to bring it all home.
It was a nice way to bring it home. And I guess we'll bring this episode home, because that's the end of that wonderful episode, The Surrogate. I give it 5 out of 5, man. It's my favorite episode of the season. What about you?
I give it 4.5. Great. I didn't think it was for this season. I think it's probably my equal favorite so far. Really good episode, lot going on, hilarious. People think that Larry's a racist, even though it's a storyline that's been rolled out a few times. It's still got a lot of legs, which I really like. But yeah, really fantastic episode, and it is a fan favorite as well, and I understand why.
It's terrific, a terrific episode. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that one. That was Curbcast, another episode of that, and we are at the tail end end of season 4. We got 3 episodes to go of this excellent season. You can find us on social media at CurbcastPod. You can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast service. 5 stars preferably, but whatever you think. And those reviews help us in the algorithm. So if anyone types in Curb Your Enthusiasm, will come up on the list pretty highly. So any review helps a lot. And tell your friends and family about us as well. Anyone who likes Seinfeld and or Curb, be sure to tell them. And hopefully they enjoy what they see or what they hear.
What they hear, yeah. What they see, definitely not.
We don't do video podcasts just yet.
No. What they see, definitely not. I mean, even if they saw a photo of us, they'd be like, "Ooh." But
good.
Yeah, what they hear, maybe they're like my my docile COVID tones.
Your docile COVID. No, you did pretty well though, bud. No, you did very well
thanks.
Considering, and you're at the tail end, and hopefully by the time we record next time, you'll feel a lot better.
Yeah, I think I'll be back to 100%. Yeah, but I think I need a nap after this. This is definitely zapped whatever energy I had.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Yeah. I thought so. And if you want to drop in and say g'day or shoot us an email, just give us feedback or say hello, whatever you want to do. Curbcastpod@gmail.com is where it's at. You can support us for a couple of bucks a month as well on Patreon, patreon.com/Mishmash Media. Mishmash Media is our burgeoning podcast network, and this year we'll probably have a few more things that we have planned that we'll bring to you, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, my name is Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And we will catch you next week for another episode of Curbcast Season 4. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.